Imagine this, a colossal beast of steel, rattling across battlefields with the roar of diesel engines that shake the earth, its hull gleaming like an impenetrable fortress in the dim light of dawn. But what if that fortress could be shattered by a buzzing insect, a cheap drone whirring through the sky, tiny and unstoppable? That's the shocking reality facing Russia's vaunted tanks, supposedly armored against apocalypse itself after 3 decades of pouring billions into Arena M, the active protection system meant to make their machines gods of war. Yet, here they are, toppled by toys costing less than a single tank shell. How did a nation boasting the world's mightiest mechanized force get humbled by humming swarms from above? In the heart of conflict, where the air reeks of burnt fuel and acrid smoke from explosions stings the eyes, Russia's tanks were destined for dominance. Arena M, this marvel armored with layers of metal, ceramic, and composites equal to 3 feet of raw steel, emerged from shadows stretching back to the Soviet era. It promised invincibility, a shield where radar arrays scanned horizons, a computer brain calculated threats, and interceptor tubes blasted away incoming dangers at speeds from 150 to 1500 miles per hour. Filtering out false alarms like irrelevant bird calls or harmless projectiles, it activated within 160 feet, destroying whatever dared approach. Envision the quiet hum of sensors awakening, the sharp crack of interceptors launching, vaporizing targets in fiery bursts that light up the twilight. This wasn't just armor, it was evolution. Offering 270 degrees to full 360-degree coverage, ready to reignite Russian glory. As rumors swirled into 2025, the whispers grew louder, buckle up, because the tide shifts next. Western voices like David Hambling echoed in Forbes that August, questioning if Arena M could ward off Ukrainian drones, turning Russia's T-90HM tanks into untouchable icons. Pictures leaked from Russian showrooms in February, hinting deployment, and a video followed, capturing the system in mock glory, intercepting grenades skimming low and missiles arching high. Was this proof against javelins, those sleek anti-tank monsters? Military eyes saw potential, but doubts lingered on the approach angle. Still, hope soared, perhaps this was the edge unfurling, equipping even older T-72s from October work. But wait, the ground rumbles under mounting doubts. What shadows lurk in this steel giant's design? Imagine clutching cold metal bars, sweat beading on skin amid the stench of oil and fear, as analysts shatter illusions. In a twist that humiliates a superpower, Russian expert Viktor Murakowski exposes Arena M's fatal flaw through detailed scrutiny. This shield falters utterly against drones, the real beasts devouring tanks by the thousands. Its radar, blanketing the tank's skin, fails to spot low-visibility threats like plastic-draped unmanned hordes. Doppler detection and moving target tricks, relics from older defenses, can't catch slow low-flyers hugging terrain. Close-range blindness reignites vulnerability, where interceptors can't cover the chaos of buzzing impending doom. Even Andrei Tarasyenko weighs in, if the drone carries a metal warhead, why can't the sensors scream warning? But the answers evade. Either radar's blind to drones yet might handle javelins, or they're broken beyond 30 years of dreams. Feel the frustration in your chest, all that investment, millions funneled into a gimmick unable to shield against the swarm's relentless stings. No mass deployment floods the front lines. Why? Because it's a pricey farce, waiting to crack under UAV onslaughts. Now, tanks trade glory for mockery, welded cages clanging like oversized bird cages, metal nets groaning against impacts, sheds swaying atop turrets. These makeshift mocks, dubbed cope apparatuses, absorb blows in a desperate dance with humiliation. The irony burns, while Arena M sits polished but powerless, soldiers patch up defeats with scrap, the fleet's strength imploding in weary improvisations. Can this be the end of invincibility, or is redemption waiting in the wings? In the ongoing battle for control, Russia has invested decades into a revolutionary tank defense system called Arena M. Promised to make their tanks invulnerable to nearly all threats, it was meant to revolutionize mechanized warfare. But recent years reveal a shocking truth: this high-tech armor is failing to deliver when it matters most. Instead of safeguarding their forces, it's become a costly illusion, replaced by makeshift shields and desperate improvisations. Imagine the roar of engines, the clatter of metal, and the tension in the air as tanks roll forward. Expectations were sky-high. News leaked that Arena M could intercept deadly drones, missiles, and anti-tank grenades. Official reports boasted of radar systems capable of tracking threats traveling at speeds up to 1,500 miles per hour. The system was designed to grant nearly complete coverage, close to 360 degrees, protecting Russian tanks from any attack. It sounded unbeatable, like a shield forged in the depths of the Soviet-era's technological ambitions. But beneath this shiny veneer lies a disturbing crack. Recent investigations reveal that despite all claims, Arena M struggles where it counts most, detecting and neutralizing small, fast-moving threats, especially drones. The same drones Ukraine mounts from plastic, cardboard, and radio-transparent materials, aiming to silence tanks with just a fraction of the cost of a missile. These tiny devices fly silently, almost invisible, slipping past the armor's radar, which was supposed to see everything. Instead of thwarting these tiny enemies, the system often fails to identify them at distances under 160 feet. With each missed assault, the tank's survival hangs in the balance. What causes this failure? The answer lies in the core technology of Arena M's radar. Designed decades ago for traditional air defense, it relies on methods like Doppler detection and moving target indication, tools that work well against large aircraft or fast-moving missiles. But they are utterly powerless against small, slow-moving drones that operate close to terrain or at low altitudes. These tiny threats have a minimal radar cross-section, making them practically invisible to the system's sensors. Instead of becoming an impenetrable fortress, the tank becomes deaf, blind to the very weapons that threaten it most. The irony is undeniable. The system was built to track and shoot down drones with precision, yet its radar is hopelessly outdated. A military historian named Andrei Tarasyenko points out that the radar can't even detect small, slow FPV drones, those tiny pilot-view aircraft Ukraine famously employs. But why is that an issue? Because most of Ukraine's drone swarm is payloadless, designed purely for destruction, with heat warheads that can melt through armor. If Arena M cannot detect or intercept these heat signatures, the whole system dissolves into a dangerous myth. The revelation is shocking. Instead of a modern shield, Arena M has become an expensive, ineffective fantasy. Western analysts confirm that attempts to retrofit older tanks with this system have failed to produce the claimed proliferation of protection. Russia's elite tanks now sit vulnerable, as their supposed invincibility proves hollow against the tiny, relentless swarm of Ukrainian drones. And while Russia pours billions into this failed technology, soldiers are resorting to ragged improvised defenses, metal cages, welded shields, and anti-drone barriers, desperate efforts that barely slow the incoming devastation. The question remains, how did this costly failure happen? Russia's decades of effort, fueled by a desire for technical supremacy, have turned into a cautionary tale. They built a system based on outdated assumptions, assuming radar can see what it simply cannot. Instead of evolving, they doubled down on technology that appears sophisticated but is fundamentally flawed. Could it be that Arena M's creators were blinded by their own ambitions, ignoring the lessons of modern warfare? The truth is, their so-called invulnerable tanks are now sitting ducks, prey to swarms of small, cheap drones that slip past their defenses. What does this mean for the future of mechanized warfare? As Ukraine's drone tactics evolve and improve, these ancient radars are destined to become relics, obsolete in the face of small targets that love terrain, low altitude, and stealth. For Russia, the dream of unstoppable armor has become a nightmare. Instead of a revolutionary shield, Arena M lurks as a symbol of technological hubris. And the battlefield waits to see if their tanks can survive the relentless assault of an enemy armed with nothing more than plastic, metal, and a daring will to win. In the vast battlefield of modern warfare, Russia boasts a cutting-edge armor system called Arena M, designed to turn its tanks into nearly invincible war machines. This technology promises to intercept threats flying at blazing speeds, from anti-tank missiles to deadly drones. Russia invested decades, billions of dollars trying to perfect this marvel. But a shocking truth emerges: has it all been a grand illusion? The promise was clear: Arena M would shield tanks from every danger, transforming them into unstoppable giants. Its radar sensors, supposedly capable of tracking threats from hundreds of feet away, would identify even the tiniest UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, used so effectively by Ukraine. Frontline reports spoke of mystical interception, of skies filled with crashes of enemy weapons, of tanks standing firm amidst a storm of attacks. Yet, beneath this veneer of technological supremacy, an unsettling reality begins to surface. What if the most dangerous threats, the very drones that dominate Ukraine's battlefields, slip right through. Recent investigations reveal that Arena M's radar technology, the backbone of its defenses, is fundamentally flawed. It cannot detect small, low-visibility drones, things made of plastic, radio-transparent materials that avoid radar detection. It cannot differentiate between harmless birds and deadly enemy UAVs. The system, boasted as all-seeing, is essentially blind to the very threats that have decimated Russian tanks in Ukraine. What's worse, internal reports suggest that these radars struggle to identify targets close to terrain and at low altitudes. Small drones, flying invisibly against the terrain, become ghosts, untouchable, unstoppable. Imagine the eerie silence of a battlefield, broken only by the faint hum of approaching drones. Tanks once believed to be protected now stand vulnerable, waiting for the invisible threat to strike. Without proper detection, the supposed invincibility is a myth. It's as if Russia poured decades of effort into a fortress made of glass, confident, yet fragile. Why then do we see only a handful of these supposedly advanced tanks in Ukraine? Why haven't they turned the tide? The answer is stark: Arena M is nothing close to what is claimed. It's a costly illusion that fails against the most common, cheapest weaponry, drones. Sources close to military analysts reveal that the system's flaws are systemic. The radars, designed on outdated principles, cannot track low-altitude, small-sized targets, a battlefield catastrophe. The system's interception range is limited to just 160 feet, rendering it useless against the high-speed, low-flying UAVs Ukraine employs. The most deadly weapons, those tiny drones packed with heat warheads or simple explosives, remain untouched. And to make matters worse, Russia's tanks are not equipped with enough Arena M units to make a difference. Deployment across the front lines is sparse, ineffective, and vulnerable. In response, what has Russia resorted to? A bizarre collection of makeshift defenses, welded cages, metal screens, crude anti-drone structures mounted atop tanks, often ridiculed as coping cages. These patchwork solutions symbolize desperation. A stark contrast to the advanced technology promised. Russian soldiers are forced to improvise, trying to shield their tanks with metal lattices, hoping these cobbled-together defenses can somehow fend off the drone attacks. The very armor that was supposed to revolutionize warfare has become a laughingstock. The truth is shocking: decades of investment, countless technological breakthroughs, all culminating in a failure of epic proportions. Russia's most ambitious project to safeguard its tanks has turned into an expensive, ineffective boondoggle. The question now looms: why hasn't Arena M been deployed en masse? Why are only a few tanks fitted with this invincible armor? The reason is clear: exposing Arena M's vulnerabilities would be disastrous. Its flaws are too glaring, its costs too high, to risk widespread use without risking national embarrassment. As the battlefield evolves, so does the harsh reality: advanced armor systems can falter under the simplest threats. The most deadly element persists: the humble drone. Despite decades of tech development, radars trapped in outdated paradigms remain ineffective against modern low-altitude UAVs. Russia's grand military machine, once seen as unstoppable, now faces a humbling truth: sometimes, low-tech tactics can defeat the most advanced technology. This cold reality exposes a dangerous gap in military strategy. A technology touted as invincible cannot stop what it was never designed to counter. The battlefield has spoken: it is the small, cheap, yet deadly drones, those tiny, plastic, no heat, low radar targets, that decide who will dominate and who will fall. Russia's expensive armor is vulnerable, their soldiers left improvising amidst ineffective defenses, all while the enemy swarm of drones continues to ravage their tanks. What comes next? Will improvements fix Arena M's flaws, or is this the beginning of a new era where technology alone no longer guarantees victory? The relentless roar of drone swarms slicing through the air like angry bees is deafening. The metallic clangs and the smell of burnt cordite fill the battlefield. Despite decades of investment, Russia's military industry still struggles to craft a true shield against these aerial foes. How can a nation spend hundreds of millions and still face total failure? Russia's defensive coped cages have become infamous: crude metal screens and makeshift shields meant to absorb drone strikes. These are no longer just trial pieces, they are proudly displayed at military exhibitions, flaunted as modern solutions. But are they proof of progress, or desperate improvisation? As Ukrainian drones relentlessly target Russian armor, these antiquated barriers have practically become symbols of failure. The truth is stark: Russia's forces are forced to rely on cobbled-together defenses because the technology meant to safeguard their mechanized units is fundamentally broken. Despite knowing the stakes, up to 80% of casualties caused by drones, the defense industry seems powerless. Reliable, autonomous counter-drone systems? Still just a distant dream. Instead, Russia pours billions into outdated tech like Arena M, yet still loses ground every day. In 2024, Moscow's spending on anti-drone technology soared past $500 million. That's second only to the United States, a staggering amount. As of spring 2025, nearly 80% of Russian civilian enterprises have installed some form of drone defense. The market's growth is explosive, expected to rise by nearly a quarter each year and reach $1 billion by 2030. Yet, reality bites. Even with all that cash, the drones keep winning. How? Because the fundamental flaw isn't in the money, it's in the design. The radars of Russia's Arena M, the supposed crown jewel of anti-drone defense, are woefully inadequate against low-flying, small UAVs. These tiny, plastic-bodied threats are almost invisible to the system's sensors. Even when they are detected, the radars struggle to distinguish them from ground clutter, rendering the interceptors useless at critical close ranges. Imagine the sharp whine of incoming drones, the low hum of electronics struggling to see them. The radar's Doppler detection, once cutting-edge, is now obsolete against these elusive foes. Small UAVs, with their tiny radar signatures and low speeds, slip past the defenses with ease. And when the radars can't detect the threat, no amount of expensive missiles or active protection systems can save the tank. It's like trying to catch whispers in a storm. Impossible. Some experts suggest the core issue is the outdated technology behind the radars. They were designed for old-school aerial threats, not these stealthy, plastic drones. They can't identify the heat signatures or payloads that truly pose danger. As a result, the very weapon Russia relies on to stop Ukraine's drones is blind. Firing blind is no defense at all. It's just costly noise. The irony is brutal: decades of effort, countless millions spent, and yet the most lethal weapon Ukraine deploys is still winning. The drones slip past Russian defenses, turning tanks into sitting targets. The so-called invincible armor is failing to perform. Despite all the hype, the real story is one of monumental failure. Meanwhile, Russian soldiers are left improvising with welded cages and anti-drone nets like makeshift armor. Some even resort to bizarre metal scaffolds mounted on tanks, shrugging off the threat with desperation. It's a dismal sight: war's chaos exposing the cracks in a once mighty military machine. Every failed interception, every destroyed tank, echoes the same core truth. Despite heavy spending, Russia's defense industry can't produce a true counter to drones. The aircraft remain vulnerable. The defense bubbles burst. And Ukraine's skies fill with silent, deadly threats that Russia's outdated radars simply can't see. Are these failures just bad luck? Or are they a sign that Russia's military is spending itself into a trap? The answer appears chilling: unless radical change comes, the drone tide will drown even the most heavily armored tanks. It's a war of technology, and right now, Russia is losing. Previous summary: it was supposed to be the ultimate tank armor, a breakthrough that would make Russian tanks nearly invincible. Russia aimed to develop an active protection system to dominate mechanized warfare. But after 30 years, reality has shattered those dreams. Instead of invincibility, Russian tanks face an unexpected enemy: disposable drones costing a fraction of traditional weapons. This story reveals how a once hopeful defense system falls apart in the face of modern, agile threats. Imagine a battlefield where hundreds of drones swarm like angry hornets, relentlessly attacking massive steel giants. Could a decades-old armor system really stop these tiny, elusive predators? Or is it just another failed illusion in a war fueled by high-tech promises? The reality is shocking: Russia's supposed invincible tanks are crumbling, under attack from enemy drones that are cheaper, faster, and more deadly than anything their defenses can handle. Following years of investment into a cursed project named Arena M, Russia envisioned these tanks as impenetrable bastions of modern warfare. The armor, marketed as the ultimate active protection system, was supposed to make tanks invincible, capable of destroying incoming threats with radar-guided interceptors. The goal? Turn the tide of war by making Russia's mechanized forces unstoppable. Yet, what if I told you that after nearly 30 years and millions poured into development, Arena M is failing catastrophically? Instead of safeguarding the tanks, it's becoming an expensive vestige of hope. In recent months, Russia installed Arena M on its advanced T-90M tanks and even retrofitted some of the older T-72s. They boast of near-complete 360-degree protection against threats from every angle. Still, deployment remains limited. Why? Because the system's core radar technology can't detect the most dangerous foes, the tiny, radio-transparent drones Ukraine floods onto the battlefield. These weren't supposed to be a threat, designed to be invisible even to radar. But now, they're systematically dismantling Russia's armor, exposing its weaknesses. The images circulating from military showrooms and battlefield videos paint a grim picture. Russian tanks equipped with Arena M fire interceptors that miss or misfire. When Ukrainian drones approach, they slip past radar, often approaching from terrain-blanketed angles that evade detection. The system, built on decades-old radar principles, struggles to pick up small, slow-moving objects. These are not your typical targets, they are plastic drones, silent as shadows, making even the best radar irrelevant. Even when interceptors launch, they're limited to a mere 160 feet. That's less than half the length of a football field. When a tiny drone with a heat warhead approaches, the radar fails to react. The result? Tanks being hit, destroyed, often leaving only shattered steel and burnt-out wrecks. It gets worse. Defense experts reveal that Arena M is outdated before it even hits the battlefield. Its radar, based on traditional methods like Doppler detection, can't track drones that operate close to terrain, at low altitude, or with minimal radar cross-section. It's like trying to spot a butterfly with a magnifying glass designed for elephants. Even military historians wonder if the system's radar can't detect these threats, then what's the point of a modern active protection system? The tanks are supposed to be protected from heat-seeking missiles and javelin projectiles. Yet, they're vulnerable to the very weaponry that Ukraine relies on most: small, cheap, and deadly drones. This glaring vulnerability forces a disturbing question: why does Russia keep spending on Arena M? The answer? It's a catastrophic investment, a relic of hopes that haven't materialized. Reports reveal that even with all the hype, Arena M is barely deployed in Ukraine. The systems remain limited, not enough tanks are fitted, and the ones that are don't perform as promised. Why? Because the system's radar can't do the job it's supposed to. It can't detect the enemies that do most damage, and the few interceptors fired are often wasted on harmless objects or false alarms. Meanwhile, the real tragedy unfolds. Russia's tanks are getting destroyed in staggering numbers. Since the start of the Ukraine conflict, reports detail a staggering loss of approximately 10,000 tanks. That's an annihilation rate of nearly 285 tanks every month for over 3 years. Despite attempts to upgrade defenses, the numbers have barely improved. Recent reports reduce the monthly tank loss to around 148, a grim sign of how quickly they're running out of mechanized forces. Strategic reserves depleted, morale fragile, and the battlefield littered with burned, torn steel. The shocking truth is clear. Russia's technological promises, especially Arena M, are nothing but hollow shells. Real combat exposes their weaknesses, and drones, tiny, elusive, and with the ability to evade radar, expose the cracks in the armor. All the high-tech gadgets and decades of investment can't hide the fact that Russia's tanks are increasingly vulnerable. In the end, it's not just a story of failed technology, it's a story of lost opportunities, strategic errors, and the harsh reality of modern warfare where small drones change everything. Where will this lead next? Will Russia find a way to adapt, or are they doomed to watch their once feared army become relics of a bygone era? In a world where stolen triumphs turn to bitter dust, Russia's armored legions once plunged into full frontal assaults during the early years of the Ukraine war, yet losses hovered around 148 tanks monthly. Not from smarter shields, but a grim truth: Russia's dwindling mechanized might, crippled reserves gasping their last breaths on barren fields stained by relentless conflict. Can a broken dream of unyielding metal turn the tide for a nation teetering on the edge, or will cheap buzzing foes shatter it all? Imagine the old Soviet halls, the acrid scent of engine oil mingling with grease-stained hands, echoes of welding torches sizzling in the dim light, memories of engineers poring over blueprints, believing invincibility neared grasp after decades. Was that hope just an illusion, now crushed under drone wings? Ukraine basks in the glow of defiance, shattered Russian behemoths littering retreat paths turned to jagged scrap or defiant trophies gleaming in liberated sun. Rumbling metal screams as hammers smash them down, echoes of victory reverberating through cities like KYV, where locals pry apart hulks for reuse. The tang of rusted iron lingers in the air, the rough scrape of tools against cold steel a tactile reminder of Russia's ache to reclaim what fate denied. Can armored giants ever rise again from such humiliation? Russia's vault empties fast, a hollow echo in empty warehouses crying out. Back in June, Novaya Gazeta unveiled grim charts from the Institute for the Study of War, or ISW. Figures show just 46% of pre-war tank stockpiles endure. Superficially hopeful? Sure. With over 10,000 machines already erased in fiery demise. Yet, those remnants? Mere rejects, unfit for battle eons before Ukraine's call armories dregs, awaiting disassembly for solitary working bits. Frankly, why the facade? ISW warns, if these tallies hold, usable T-70s and kin vanish by late 2025's chill. Whirlwind doubt swirls, audacious forecast or cold reality? Shock lingers as October 8's United 24 media peels back layers via open-source sleuths John P.'s satellite eyes reveal plummeting usable stocks, from 7,342 units to a paltry 92 mostly sturdy T-72B3s in prime trim. Plus, 1,606 others linger, but are they warriors or shadows? Even if Arena M roared to life, radars piercing skies flawlessly, could it mend this fracture? Prospects dim, whispers of widespread failure explain skimpy deployments, why hurl precious armored souls into drone maws, exposing hype's cracks? Russia's commanders improvise wildly, clunky welded cages clank like dying beasts, mesh screens rattle against impacts, sheds atop turrets sway precariously, mocking fate's cruel jest. Smell of heated solder, the crunch of hasty repairs, palpable desperation as crews hunch, hands trembling on makeshift defenses. Yet, amid engine growls and wire snags, a twist emerges. Arena M's hype feeds on javelins and grenades older blasts, but evolving drone swarms? They adapt, low and sly, escaping grasp like shadows through mist. Russia's gamble, millions sunk into a siren song, now a relic powerless against today's buzz. What unforeseen shift awaits on these scarred plains? Will Ukraine's ingenuity hum louder, or does Russia clutch one final, fragile gambit? Control 161. Shortly after, Ukraine embraced the fallout of Russia's tank misfortunes, turning abandoned hulks from retreats into twisted memorials of stubborn courage. UK Defense Journal highlights this poignant scene. Vibrant Ukrainian cities now host displays of these wrecks chosen for inspiration, while liberated villages see locals dismantling them further, hammers ringing against torn plating, the sharp odor of charred hydraulics and diesel fumes clinging to the breeze like a defiant perfume. Russia aches to pull back these tokens of vengeance, their plight so dire, even a flawless Arena M might falter if radars awoke, but tanks run on fumes in Russian hangars. Flashback to June's reveal. Novaya Gazeta, echoing Institute for the Study of War voices. Numbers stark, only 46% of pre-war spares remain. Does that mask prosperity? Indeed, over 10,000 tanks vaporized, yet those left? Outcasts deemed unworthy 3 years before ISW's audit. Armory castoffs, rebuilt for mere parts' sake. If accurate, ISW predicts 0 usable tanks by year-end 2025. Unrealistic? Perhaps not. Talk turns to October 8's United 24 Media Scoop, an open-source dive by John P. Group. Satellite glimpses confirm freefall, from 7,342 tanks to merely 92 in fair shape, mostly T-72B3s. Plus, 1,606 extra linger, but condition whispers ruin. Why deploy such dross? Wars where scant protections leave formations vulnerable, crews scavenging with jerry-rigged layers. Try this, huddled in command tents. Sweat beading on brows from engine heat wafting through vents, soldiers weld metal grates atop turrets, sparks flying like desperate fireflies, the clang of metal echoing personal dread. Smells of solder melt with acrid exhaust, rough welds chafe skin as fingers grip tools. Known as cope cages in jest, these improvisations absorb drone kisses crudely, Ukraine's ascent undisrupted. Yet, irony bites deep. Drones, once niche threats, now redefine battles, their plastic frames slipping past old radars. Can Arena M's legacy defy evolution? Contractors tiptoe around flaws, mass integration stalls, delaying Ukraine's doom. Financial sinks deepen, decades pour into a void. Absence in frontline hordes tells the tale, boondoggle exposed, tanks shuddering without true shield. Is Russia's armored pride forever undone by buzzing cheapsters, or awaits a desperate revival? Picture nights under starlit horizons, breaths fogging on frozen scopes, pulse racing as unseen threats close. What twisted fate binds these steel titans now, amid fading roars and rising doubts? Incredible as it sounds, Russia's army is running out of tanks. Satellite images from open sources reveal a catastrophic drop in usable reserves. Once boasting over 7,300 tanks, estimates now show only a few dozen remain in fighting condition. Just 92 T-72Bs are still operational, with another 1,600 in poor shape, and 844 almost completely destroyed. Imagine if the much-touted Arena M armor had been effective. It's supposed to turn tanks into nearly invincible fortresses, capable of intercepting threats from all directions. But even if it worked perfectly, it wouldn't be enough. The reality is far worse. The system's designed to prevent damage from traditional anti-tank missiles, yet it's utterly useless against cheap, low-tech drones costing as little as $400 each. What if Arena M had been true to its promise? It might have slowed Russia's devastating tank losses, allowing them to push forward faster. Putin desperately wants tanks that can eliminate Ukrainian drones before they hit. But after 3 decades of development, Arena M is nothing but a costly failure. Instead of protection, it's become a monument to Russia's wasting billions, while tanks are blown apart by tiny, inexpensive drones. This failure exposes a deeper crisis. Russia is hemorrhaging funds. Its economy teeters on the edge of collapse, crippled by booming military spending, escalating taxes, and mounting costs imposed by Ukraine and Western sanctions. As tanks become scrap metal, and reserves dwindle, the real cost to Russia isn't just military, it's financial and political. The story doesn't end here. The more Arena M fails to shield Russian tanks, the greater the national drain. Entire industries are strained, resources drained, and the war effort, once believed unstoppable, turns into a costly quagmire. Russia's powerful weapon systems are turning into paper tigers, and the true price of this reckless invasion? It's paid not just in soldiers, but in the very future of the economy. Are these failures just the tip of the iceberg? What secrets hide behind the scenes of a military machine that's rapidly falling apart? The truth is more shocking than anyone expected. Prepare to uncover the shocking reality behind Russia's falling apart war machine and what it means for the future. The idea was simple: create armor so advanced it would make tanks nearly unstoppable, deflecting everything from small projectiles to guided missiles. This ambition led to the development of a groundbreaking active protection system called Arena M. Russia thought this technology would transform its armored forces into an unbreakable fortress, a mighty shield against any foe. But reality has proven to be far crueler. Decades of effort and billions invested, yet the threat evolved faster than the system could keep up. Instead of becoming invulnerable, Russian tanks now face a new enemy: tiny, inexpensive drones that cost a fraction of a single shell. These silent killers glide from above, slipping past radar, evading detection, and striking with devastating precision. It's a plot twist no one saw coming. The system was meant to be a game-changer. Marketed as an all-around shield, Arena M was supposed to intercept incoming threats at speeds up to 1,500 miles per hour, distinguishing real dangers from harmless airborne clutter. Its radar sensors, designed to protect 270 to 360 degrees of the tank, were expected to crush Ukrainian anti-tank weapons, javelin missiles, grenades, and now, even deadly FPV drones. The promise was clear: Russia's tanks would become nearly invincible. But what if the invincibility was an illusion? recent reports reveal a different story. Inside sources, including military analysts, expose a shocking truth: Arena M's radars fail miserably against small, low-visibility targets. Tiny drones made of plastic, using radio-transparent materials, slip past detection like ghosts. They move low and slow, hugging terrain, flying just out of radar range, almost impossible to spot. And when they are detected, the system struggles to separate them from ground clutter. How can a tank defend itself against an enemy it can't even see? Imagine the sounds: the faint hum of a drone overhead, the rough scrape of metal against plastic, the tense silence broken only by distant explosions. A tank operator's hand trembling as they wait for the radar to confirm a threat that might never be detected. The armor, once heralded as the ultimate defense, becomes an expensive illusion, a relic from a bygone era of thinking. The harsh truth is that Arena M is fundamentally flawed. Its radars, based on outdated detection methods like Doppler shifts, are hopeless against small, slow-moving UAVs operating close to terrain. Unlike larger aircraft or missiles, these tiny drones barely register on conventional radar. And with Ukraine's drone industry capable of producing up to 10 million unmanned vehicles annually, thanks to high-tech factories and vast resources, the scale of the threat is enormous. How long can a tank's limited interceptor supply last against such a relentless influx? Here's the twist: Russia spent decades and countless dollars trying to arm its tanks with a system that can't effectively detect or intercept the very weapons Ukraine relies on: drones. Instead, the tanks are left vulnerable, relying solely on makeshift defenses, welded cages, metal screens, anti-drone sheds, that offer little real protection. The idea of invincibility, it seems, was just that, a dream. As tensions escalate, the failure of Arena M becomes more glaring. Its shortcomings aren't just technical, they're strategic. If the system can't detect low radar cross-section targets, it's practically useless against the most common form of attack. This means Russia's most advanced tanks, the symbols of their mechanized might, are sitting ducks in a drone era. Meanwhile, Ukraine's drone fleets grow stronger, more capable, and more daring. So, what's next? Will Russia continue throwing money into a sinking ship, or will they finally acknowledge that their invincible armor is just a costly illusion? The reality is clear: no system can defend perfectly against an enemy that refuses to stand still. The battlefield has shifted, and the old shield isn't enough anymore. Drones won't just threaten tanks, they threaten the entire concept of armed armor, forcing a fundamental rethink of what it really takes to protect modern armies. The question remains: in a world of tiny, stealthy alternatives, can any armor system really stand firm? Or are we witnessing the dawn of a new age, where vulnerability is the new armor? The truth is, the coming years will reveal whether Russia's decades-long investment in Arena M was a grand mistake, or if they're just beginning to realize that some threats can't be stopped with radars and interceptors alone. Imagine Russia's tanks, armored like colossal beasts, finally gaining the edge against those relentless Ukrainian drones that swoop from above. Arena M promises to transform them into intercepting machines, merging external radar sensors with internal controls. But can it truly dominate the battlefield? What if Russia's dream shield turned out to be a fragile illusion, shattered by cheap clouds of plastic? The bitter smell of failure hangs heavy in the air. Arena M integrates an external array of radar sensors on those massive tanks, with a sophisticated computer control system, and launch tubes packed with explosive interceptor rounds, ready to blast apart incoming threats, from anti-tank missiles to deadly drones. According to Forbes, it can track and target any high-speed menace, ranging from 150 to 1,500 miles per hour. Its advanced radar filters out distractions like harmless birds or tiny projectiles, focusing only on real dangers. Once a threat creeps within 160 feet, boom, an interceptor launches and obliterates it. This concept sounds genius, doesn't it? If it actually worked, it could redefine tank warfare. Russia has chased this tech since Soviet times, aiming for 270 to 360 degrees of total protection. But as 2025 dawned, whispers of implementation spread, bringing more tension. By February this year, Images emerged. Russian T-90M tanks flaunting the new armor in a showroom in Russia. Yet rumors placed them in Ukraine, hinting at deployment against rising dangers. A month later, Militani covered a Russian video showing Arena M intercepting an anti-tank grenade skimming the earth, plus some upper the tank's turret pivoting with mechanical whir. Echoes of explosions echoing across the screen. Russia broadcast a bold message. No weapon, no direction can pierce its armor. Militani pondered if this meant blocking Ukraine's Javelin missiles, but noted the video's upper missile approached gently, while a Javelin zoomed straight, leaving doubt lingering. Russia pushed Arena M as the pinnacle of defense. Yet cracks appeared underneath the hype. August reports from Army recognition said fitting began on T-72s and T-90Ms. Even retrofitting older Soviet tanks in the Ukraine conflict? This should spell doom for Ukraine, right? Drones faltering against unbeatable tanks, paving Russia's charges. But why no overwhelming victories? The shocking twist? Arena M fails miserably. Exposed by Russia's own analyst, Viktor Murakovsky tore apart the illusion. Radar blindness dooms small drones. Low-profile plastics evade detection. Chaos near ground clutter. Effective up to 160 feet. But useless close-in. Drones threaten most. Yet Arena M, designed for speed, struggles against slow, stealthy foes. Traditional methods falter here. Even Tarasienko argues radar misses drones. But warheads carry metal. So why the failure? Two ugly truths emerge. Dreadful for Russia. Is it blind to drones yet sees missiles? Or completely broken? Unable to spot anything? Either way, Ukraine's drones reign supreme. Decades of investment crumble. Millions wasted on hype. Deployments sparse. To hide embarrassment, Russian crews cling to desperate fixes. Welding jagged cages. Erecting screens in sheds. Rattling like scrap metal armor. Absorbing blows with crude heft. The pungent stench of deceit fills the air. Tanks, once proud, skulk like wounded animals, clanking under makeshift shells. Will this humiliation end? Or continue haunting the battlefield? Russia's technological behemoth, brought low by whispers of bugs and boons, leaving tanks vulnerable as Ukrainian ingenuity triumphs. In this war of machines and minds, did you believe the armor myth before the drone reality struck? The arc of promise bends toward failure, emotions swirling in defeat, but twists await. Will Russia adapt? Or perish under drone storms? Imagine a nightmare scenario where a tiny, swift drone drops from the sky silent, almost invisible. It evades radar, slipping past defenses. Now, picture a tank's supposed miracle armor, built to destroy such threats. Arena M is heralded as the ultimate protector, designed to turn tanks into nearly invincible machines. But does it truly deliver? Or is it just an elaborate illusion? For decades, Russia has poured billions into perfecting this technology. The goal? Create an active protection system capable of intercepting nearly any incoming danger: drones, missiles, anti-tank grenades. This system is packed with radar sensors mounted on the exterior of tanks, linked to sophisticated computer controls. No tubes for interceptors, just real-time tracking and firing. The promise? At speeds from 150 to 1,500 miles per hour, threats are neutralized before they hit. The radar is supposed to filter out harmless objects like birds and small debris, focusing only on real threats. Once a target enters the 160-foot zone of the system, an interceptor round fires, obliterating the danger. It sounds impressive, almost science fiction. If it worked as promised, it could revolutionize battlefield armor. Russia's quest for invincibility isn't new. Since the Soviet era, engineers have aimed to equip tanks with this kind of active defense. Now, as 2025 arrives, rumors swirl about the system's deployment. Fresh images surface showing Russian T-90M tanks clad in what appears to be revolutionary armor. These photos, originating from a Ukrainian battlefield, hint that Arena M is finally ready. Russia seems to deploy it as a shield against Ukraine's most potent weapons, especially those drones designed to destroy tanks from above. A month later, a video emerges. It shows a Russian tank intercepting a flying anti-tank grenade, then a missile swooping overhead. The scene is carefully staged, but the message is clear: no matter what Ukraine throws, Arena M can stop it. Experts suggest that, if authentic, the system might even intercept Ukraine's deadly Javelin missiles. Yet, a nagging question remains: can it truly do what Russia claims? Or is it just an elaborate show? Behind the scenes, a shocking truth starts to surface: the system isn't nearly perfect. An independent analyst, Viktor Murakowski, exposes cracks in Arena M's armor. His detailed technical review reveals a sad reality. The radar's design is outdated. It struggles to detect small, slow-moving drones, especially those built from plastic or other radio-transparent materials. These drones, used by Ukraine to attack from above, slip past radar detection with ease. Worse, the radar can't distinguish these tiny aerial objects from ground clutter when they're close by. In practical terms, this flaw is catastrophic. The interceptors, limited to a short 160-foot range, often miss stealthy drones. The radar's technology relies on methods that can't track low-altitude, low-visibility targets. It's like trying to spot a tiny bird against a cluttered sky, a near-impossible task. This means Russia's most advanced armor is effectively blind to the primary threat it was designed to counter. Why does this matter? Because, despite massive investments, Arena M is ineffective against the real danger: Ukrainian drones. Instead of protecting tanks from the drone swarms attacking from above, it leaves them vulnerable. The technological choice was flawed from the start. As Murakowski explains, the radar cannot detect the threat's heat signature, nor its small metal payloads. Most drone strikes rely on heat warheads or small metal components that a modern radar should catch. But it doesn't. The devastating irony is this: Russia spent decades, countless dollars, and endless effort developing an armor system that can't defend against the biggest menace: tiny, agile drones. Its armor, touted as a breakthrough, is now revealed as little more than an expensive distraction. Without effective radar detection, Arena M can't stop the threats it was meant to neutralize. It's a costly illusion of invincibility. As this truth unfolds, the stakes become terrifying. Instead of a shield, Russia's tanks are left exposed. The system intended to make them unstoppable turns out to be just another empty promise. What will happen when Ukraine's drones continue to slip past defenses? Will Russia admit defeat and re-evaluate? Or will they persist with their costly delusion, risking more losses on the battlefield? The real question remains: are their tanks truly protected, or are they just sitting ducks? The technology meant to make Russia's tanks invulnerable is falling apart. For decades, Russia has invested heavily in what was supposed to be the ultimate shield: Arena M, a cutting-edge active protection system. Marketed as a game-changer, it promised to turn tanks into nearly unstoppable fortresses, capable of intercepting threats from any angle. This system was to defend tanks from all dangers, from incoming missiles to drone strikes. Yet, barely a year since its widespread deployment, alarming shortcomings have emerged. Recent reports reveal that Arena M is failing spectacularly at its core mission: intercepting small, fast-moving drones that Ukraine floods the battlefield with. Why? Its radar systems are blind to the very targets that pose the biggest threat: radio-transparent drones made of plastic, with tiny radar signatures, flying at low altitudes. These are the kinds of attacks that have crippled Russian tanks, yet the defense fails to even notice them at close range. How can a system designed to protect from aerial threats be so utterly useless against the most common weapon used today? The story doesn't end there. Officially, Russia has begun retrofitting its legacy tanks, the T-72s and fresh T-90M models, with Arena M. Starting last October, this upgrade was supposed to turn even the oldest tanks into nearly invulnerable war machines. Theoretically, these tanks could now block attacks from the most advanced Ukrainian weapons. So, why is the battlefield still littered with wrecked tanks and burning hulks? The answer is stark: Arena M is a costly failure, ironically concealed by propaganda. Western analysts and ex-military experts have now confirmed what many suspected: this marvel of modern armor is fundamentally flawed. Viktor Murakowski, a veteran analyst, has broken the silence, revealing that decades of development have produced a system incapable of countering the most common threat: drones. Its radar cannot distinguish small UAVs from clutter, especially at low altitude over rugged terrain. Despite claims of 360-degree protection, many tanks equipped with Arena M are sitting ducks, vulnerable to the very weapons they were supposed to stop. Imagine the sound of tiny plastic drones humming as they dart unpredictably through the air, their heat signatures barely registering, yet the radar remains deaf to their presence. Light as paper, silent as shadows, these UAVs penetrate the defenses Russia highly touted. If the system cannot detect or intercept them, how effective can it truly be? And if it's so ineffective, is it not just another expensive illusion bought at the expense of Russian armored units? Now, the most astonishing twist emerges: Russia's reliance on Arena M may be a colossal waste. Instead of fortifying their tanks with this supposed invulnerability, Russian forces scramble, improvising with crude cage-like defenses, welded metal shields, and makeshift anti-drone barricades. These patchwork defenses resemble desperate attempts to block the invisible enemy, smoke in the wind, trying to shield tanks from drones that slip through like ghosts. If Arena M cannot stop Ukraine's drones, what hope remains? Are Russian tanks becoming sitting targets in a war where modern technology should have tipped the scales? The truth is chilling: hundreds of millions poured into a shield that cannot stop the most common weapon in Ukraine's arsenal. The gap between propaganda and reality widens. With each passing day, Russian tanks become more vulnerable. Their invincible armor remains a myth. The battlefield echoes with the sounds of tiny drones swooping, buzzing, the ultimate challenge that Arena M cannot detect or destroy. Could this be the beginning of the end for Russia's armored ambitions? Or is the true cost still hidden behind layers of deception? The battlefield of legends isn't what it seems, and what's coming next could change everything. Imagine a battlefield where the future of armored warfare is supposed to be invincibility. Russia's most ambitious attempt at this dream was the Arena M armor system, an active protection masterpiece designed to turn tanks into nearly unstoppable fortresses. For 3 decades, this technology was touted as the game-changer, promising to make Russia's tanks invulnerable to everything, except, perhaps, the most insidious threat of all: drones. The plan was bold. Install radar sensors, sophisticated computer controls, and interceptor rounds that could neutralize incoming threats in a flash. With these defenses, tanks could spot missiles and anti-tank grenades flying at speeds that would make your blood run cold, 150 to 1,500 miles per hour, and blast them out of the sky before they reach the armored hull. The system was designed to sweep threats from all directions, offering almost complete protection. They even claimed it could intercept threats up to 160 feet away, creating a deadly shield around Russia's mechanized forces. But reality hit hard. Despite the hype, reports emerged that Arena M was less than a miracle. Pictures of Russia's tanks in training exercises showed the system installed, but experts quickly questioned its true effectiveness. Then came the devastating truth: an insider analysis revealed that the radar system within Arena M couldn't even detect the most basic threat: drones. Small, slow, and made of plastic or other radio-transparent materials, Ukrainian FPV drones slipped past with ease. The radar that was supposed to be a fortress couldn't distinguish these tiny flying devices from ground clutter, a game-changing flaw. What's more shocking? The radar technology used in Arena M was decades old, stuck in a time when detecting slow-moving, low-altitude targets was relatively simple. Now, in a modern battlefield, it's rendered useless against the very threats Russia's armor was expected to counter. To make matters worse, even when a drone was detected, the system couldn't target the heat signatures of drone payloads, most of which are harmless to the tank. Instead, it was limited to firing interceptor rounds only within a close radius, offering minimal protection when faced with swarms of tiny, relentless drones. So, why does Russia continue pouring money into a system so fundamentally flawed? The answer is simple: continued reliance on a costly illusion of invincibility. Despite the mounting evidence that Arena M is a failure against the real battlefield threats, drones that cost mere fractions compared to Russian tank shells, they refuse to abandon the dream. Instead, they rely on primitive defenses, metal cages, welded screens, and makeshift anti-drone sheds, fighting their war with improvisation and desperation. And the numbers? By 2025, Russia's anti-drone market was projected to grow by 23% annually, reaching around $1.5 billion in value. Yet, even with such investments, the core problem remains unresolved. The most dangerous weapon Ukraine employs, drones, are bypassing Russia's defenses entirely. This isn't just a Russian problem, it's a global crisis. Every modern army faces the same ruthless challenge: how to stop swarms of tiny, cheap drones that can strike from above and vanish before retaliation. As Ukrainian industries can manufacture up to 10 million unmanned vehicles each year, assuming proper investment, the sheer volume of threats overwhelms any existing defense. Russia's tanks, supposedly outfitted with the most advanced armor, are now vulnerable to a new kind of warfare, one where speed, stealth, and low-tech ingenuity triumph over decades-old radars and interceptor rounds. The unsettling truth? After years and billions of dollars poured into Arena M, Russia's Mostification effort is a costly failure. It can't even detect the drones that threaten to wipe out their heavy armor. Now, as the battlefield gets more chaotic, Russia's forces are left clinging to makeshift defenses, fighting a war they can't win with technology that's already obsolete. What does this mean for the future? Are we witnessing the collapse of armor's once golden promise? Or is there a hidden twist, an upgrade, a new breakthrough that could finally turn the tide? The reality remains, in modern war, the smallest adversaries can cause the largest damage, and even the most sophisticated armor may become just another relic of a faded dream. The idea behind Russia's invincible tank armor is crumbling before our eyes. For more than 3 decades, Russia poured endless resources into developing what was supposed to be the ultimate shield, Arena M, a state-of-the-art active protection system. Marketed as a game-changer, it promised to transform tanks into nearly unstoppable fortresses, capable of neutralizing threats from any direction. This technology aimed to protect from missiles, projectiles, and even drone swarms, turning Russian tanks into a nearly invulnerable force on the battlefield. But reality paints a different picture. Now, less than a year after mass deployment, troubling failures have surfaced. Reports surfacing from the front lines reveal that Arena M is falling spectacularly short of its core promise, intercepting small, fast-moving drones flooding the combat zones. Why is this happening? Its radar systems are practically blind to the most common threats, the tiny, plastic-made UAVs with minimal radar signatures, flying at low altitudes, often operated by Ukrainian forces. These small aircraft are virtually invisible to the system's sensors, rendering Arena M ineffective against the very weapons that have devastated Russian tanks. Imagine the sound of these micro-drones humming faintly in the air, their heat signatures barely discernible. Despite the advanced expectations, the radar remains deaf to their approach. How can a technology supposedly designed to counter aerial threats be so utterly useless against the most widespread weapon today? The story doesn't end there. Russia has begun retrofitting its older tanks, like the T-72s, and outfitting new models like the T-90M with Arena M since last October. The goal? To turn even the most dated armored vehicles into near-invulnerable war machines. Theoretically, these upgraded tanks could block the most sophisticated Ukrainian weapons systems. Yet, the battlefield remains littered with wreckage and charred hulks. Why? Because Arena M is a costly failure, yet, this truth is hidden behind layers of propaganda and false hope. Veteran analysts and military experts worldwide confirm what many suspected: this supposed marvel of modern armor is fundamentally flawed. Viktor Murakowski, a seasoned defense analyst, recently broke the silence. His review reveals that decades of development efforts have resulted in a system incapable of dealing with the most common threat, the humble drone. Its radar cannot reliably distinguish small UAVs from background clutter, especially at low altitudes over rough terrain. Although boasts of full 360-degree protection abound, many tanks equipped with Arena M are sitting ducks. They're vulnerable to the very attacks the system claimed to prevent. Just imagine the hum of tiny plastic drones darting unpredictably through the air, their heat signatures so faint they're undetectable, yet they find ways to slip past defenses. If the radar cannot pick up these flying shadows, how much protection can Arena M truly offer? But what's most astonishing is the possible truth behind Russia's reliance on this so-called invulnerable system. It may all be an illusion, hyped propaganda hiding a costly failure. Instead of strengthening their tanks with true protection, Russian forces are improvising with rudimentary defenses, welded cages, metallic shields, and makeshift anti-drone barricades, desperate attempts to block what cannot be seen or stopped. These patchwork defenses resemble a frantic effort to shield tanks from ghosts, shadows slipping in and out, unaffected. If Arena M can't counter Ukraine's drones, what hope remains? Are Russia's armored units destined to become sitting targets in a war dictated by modern technology? And the true cost? Hundreds of millions of dollars poured into a shield that cannot stop the most common weapon Ukraine deploys. The gap between glamorous propaganda and harsh battlefield reality widens each day. Russian tanks, once considered nearly invincible, now echo with the buzzing of tiny drones, swooping, buzzing, relentless, showing that Arena M's flaws are too severe to ignore. Could this mark the beginning of the end for Russia's armored ambitions? Or are the most critical failures hidden behind layers of deception, waiting to reveal themselves? One thing is certain, the battlefield of legends isn't what it appears, and what unfolds next could change everything.